the first lesson in the new unit, adding and subtracting rational expressions and solving rational equations eventually. So first of all, rational just means we're just talking about fractions. That's all it means, both rational. It's a ratio. So um, the one thing you need to keep in mind, and we'll start off in easy mode here, is that you have to have a common denominator. So you notice that in this first fraction, you both have 5 as your denominators. That's just the prerequisite. It's like the requirement for you to be able to add or subtract the tops to combine these fractions. So really, they both maintain that they have a 5 on the bottom, and then you just add the tops. So I could write it like this. I'm joining the tops, but really that's just 3 over 5. So the same thing here. It's just the requirement. We see that 7 is common denominator here. So we can combine those fractions with the 7 on the bottom. Then we combine the tops. And that would look like -2 minus 5, which is a -7. And we could reduce this because this is the same number, top and bottom, or divide it, and you would get -1. So those were old examples that should be very familiar from things in the past that you've learned about fractions. And it works the same way when we don't necessarily know what the denominator is, but it's an x, and it's the same. So x and x, same thing. That would just be 1 plus 2. I can I can kind of skip this step here. They're both like terms, so that's just a 3. And this is a perfectly acceptable answer. All we did was add the 2 tops. So next one, same deal. Common denominator, so I can just go straight to the end and say this is 3x on the bottom. I can join them. Now on the top, I see that I have 2x, and there's nothing else. The 2x and the 5 are not like terms. So this is when we get back into what you can add together and what you can't. And so maybe it's helpful for some people to, the terms that have x's are all like each other. So I put it like a triangle on that. And there are no other x's I'm adding to it, terms that have an x that I'm adding to it. So then the other ones without an x, like maybe it's a circle. That's just a number, no x. This is just a number, no x. So I can combine the green ones. So this is just basic adding like terms. We should remember that. It's quite a review at this point. And then this is 5 minus 2. So just a 3. And then that is your simplified answer. And again, we're just there's no equal sign, there's no solving. We're just simplifying here, adding like terms, making sure we have a common denominator. So there's one other thing that can be a hiccup that we should check out, and that what happens when we have a subtraction sign. So let's say that we have, let's say we have this. There's 2 parentheses here, but in this case, it actually, the parentheses don't matter as much. Like when I add these 2 things, I can throw away the parentheses, and it doesn't matter because of this plus sign. It didn't change anything within the parentheses there. So this would just be, you can see that those ones are like terms. And so we would just add those up. That'd be 3x, 2x, and 1x. Then those ones are like terms. They don't have x's. You can add those up. You just get 7. And that's the same thing in the top because, the parentheses just didn't matter. I could throw them away without any problems. In this case here, the reason why this is different is because this minus sign right here is subtracting this whole quantity. And so you kind of actually think of it as, well, this is actually like, in front of a parenthesis sign, there's a 1 there. And this is really a -1. And so we can think of this as distribution, where if you distributed that -1 to both terms, you'd actually get a -4 right here. You have a -x. Nothing out in front has changed. But there you go. So in this case, these 2 expressions aren't different at all. Up at the top, they're not different at all from each other. Throw away the parentheses, get the same answer. The bottom one when you have a negative out in front, you need to change both signs inside the parentheses. So I gotta say that again because it's going to be a common mistake. Anytime you have a subtraction outside of parentheses, you can throw away the parentheses once you've changed both signs inside the parentheses. So then this is actually, like terms would give me, 2x and negative x is just a 1x. And then 3 and negative 4, you get a negative 1. And that's the correct answer. If we didn't distribute the negative, then we get something different. We'd have a positive 7 right here for those two. And that's not right. Okay, so that's just one hiccup thing to keep aware of. So here are some common examples. This is actually the beginning of the assignment for today. So I can zoom in a little bit. So really all that matters, and this will be common for all of today, is that you need to have the same denominator if you're going to be adding these fractions. So we have to add them. That's what's being happening right here. And we're just checking to see, do they have the same bottom, same common denominator? They do. So that's where I'm starting. I'm just going to say, well, I know the denominator is going to be right there if I join them. And then the tops is x plus 2x. So I'm bringing the tops together now too. So again, the bottoms, I don't add those together. I'm just joining them. It's just a requirement that they are the same, and then I can write one fraction from them. Just like it always has been when we learned adding and subtracting fractions back in the day. And then we combine the tops. We're actually adding them, and I can kind of skip the step if I know where I'm going. But 2x, or x and 2x is just 3x over x plus 1. And we can leave it like this. There's nothing else to do. We can't simplify it anymore. It's just, that's that. So number 2 is a little trickier, but it's the same thing. I mean, check to see the denominators are the same. They are. And that will be common for today. We'll get into later when they're not the same. But they're the same, so I can just combine them right now. But I'm going to do this just very step by step so we can see it. I'm putting parentheses around this just so I can see what's happening. It's always a good idea because we'll notice that we have a subtraction of a parenthesis. And as before on the previous page, this means that we're going to have to change all of our signs. Sometimes in the past I've liked to write it this way. I've still like, well, I'm going to change this sign to plus and then change all the signs following it in parentheses. It's now a negative 5x. Now it's now a plus 2. When you rewrite it, it would look like 2x minus 5 on the bottom. And without the parentheses, it's going to look like this, minus 1 plus a negative 5 or just minus 5x and then plus 2. So really, the thing that happened is this minus, it went to the 5x, became negative, or just minus 5x. And then this was like a double negative with the 2's, so it became positive. And ultimately, when you combine these, we get a negative 2x plus 1 over 2x minus 5. Again, because when we had like terms, this one and this one were like each other, so I combined only those. And then the negative 1 and positive 2 were like each other because they don't have x's, so it's just basic like term stuff. Okay, we can do one more briefly. This one's quicker. Same denominators, so that's where we're starting. Combine the tops. I can put parentheses around them and show this. This step is going to become unnecessary. You'll see in a moment, and you'll probably skip it. I'm just doing it just to be safe, but since it's a plus sign in the middle, the parentheses aren't going to matter. So I can kind of throw them away, and then I have like terms. 6x plus 8 over x minus 4. Okay, so just a quick recap. You're adding or subtracting basically these fractions. Doesn't matter what's on the top and bottom. Start with the bottoms, make sure they're the same. If they are, we can combine them and just write them as one big fraction. Put all of the tops together. And then, check your signs, because sometimes you have a hiccup there. but then you're just adding like terms.